Hello, everybody. Thank you and very welcome to tonight's webinar. It's 24th July, it's 7 o'clock, and this is the webinar hosted by ProTax in partnership with Nitin, who is a tax trainer at BPP. This webinar has been put in place because the results for the ATT and CTA exams were out last week. And what we want to be able to do is help people with retakes, with revision, and generally support you through your tax exam journey and beyond. We want this webinar to be interactive. So please, if you've got any questions, add them to the Q&A. There's a Q&A button right at the top. I will try and filter them out to Nitin as we go. When we've done this before, we do get a lot of questions, so we'll just try and go through as many of them as we possibly can. Everyone's on mute and no camera for confidentiality and operational purposes. And hopefully you'll be able to eat your dinner whilst you learn something from Nit as well. So fingers crossed. I know it's late, but obviously it doesn't interfere with anybody's work. Let's start with some introductions. I'll introduce myself. I'm Alison Humphreys. I co-founded ProTax in 2007. For those of you that hasn't heard of us, we are a tax specialist recruitment firm. I'm not here today to sell our services. I merely want to help you pass your exams. In fact, on the contrary, I actually feel it's best for you to stay put in your firm whilst you pass your exams and until you're qualified, because it's such a huge distraction moving firms. So once you're qualified, if you did decide to move, obviously we're there for advice. Our paths may never cross. If you choose to stay at your current firm forever, but by facilitating this webinar, what I'm hoping is that one day you may use our services to recruit a team around you, or if you just need any friendly advice. That's all from me. Nitin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alison. Hi, everyone. I'm Nitin Riberu. I'm a qualified non-practicing solicitor, chartered tax advisor. I've been at BPP now for over 24 years. I teach a range of papers in tax for all qualifications. My self-proclaimed reputation is I have a no-nonsense approach of getting people through exams, not necessarily always first time, but pretty much know a little bit about exam training, and hopefully you'll find today incredibly beneficial. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And lastly, we do have a guest speaker today who'll be joining at around 7:30. He's teaching a student, actually, so very apt. We'll be joined by Jack Bonehill, who's the founder of the Tax Professionals podcast. If you've not listened to them, do try and make some time for them. They're insightful, they're funny, and they're really relatable because Jack's really down to earth. He's a fellow Brummie, I would say that. He's a CTA qualified tax professional with almost 10 years under his belt, and he's currently an employment tax director at PKF Smith Cooper. So that's the intros from the three of us. So on with the main event. I suppose first up, Nick, we talked about the exam results being out last week. What advice would you give to someone that has recently failed their tax exam?
Right. So before I begin, the first thing I want to make clear is today, it's not just about BPP. If you're at Tolley's, Kaplan, BPP, or First Intuition, they're all amazing tutorial bodies. Okay, I want to put that out there. I've got lots of friends that tutor for them. Okay, it's really about you, the individual. So Ali, when you're in a situation where I've seen many retakers over the years, and I've spoken to quite a few over the last week or so, and I think the first thing, if I'm being really honest, is sometimes a lot of the students I've spoken to will have an excuse, will have a reason. Okay, and I want to put the reasons where it's due to personal circumstances or something happened during the exam revision phase, totally understand. Okay, so I'm kind of segmenting that immediately, and I've spoken to a few, and some have decided to go for November, some have decided to wait until 2025, and I think that's really important. That if there are things happening outside of work that's clearly needs priority and needs to be dealt with, the exams can wait. Okay, so that's kind of putting that there. And if you want to have a chat about that, you can contact me after the session next week, this week. That's not an issue. I get a lot of students saying to me, Nick, I scored 40%, I got 41, I got 47, in some cases 49. I was just a few marks away. And if Jack was here, he'd start laughing, because that really frustrates me. Because if I look at it from an employer's point of view, if you're just 40%, 47% accurate, you're looking at a planned exit, you're looking at retraining issues, you're looking at competency. And I think for me, when a student scores 40 in the 40s, it's a good percentage, don't get me wrong, but that student has probably missed 20, 30 marks. Yeah, and they don't acknowledge that there were so many easy marks they could have got. And I had a student today said to me, oh, the capital allowances question let me down in OMB Advanced Technical. And I then said, well, what about the other 80 marks? And the phone call just went silent. And that wasn't me being difficult. That was me trying to get this person to understand, look, you're technically there, but you need to be technically brilliant. Yeah, not a perfectionist, but you need to be technically brilliant so that under exam conditions, you can show the examiner that you're competent, you're really competent. So I think the first thing is you've got to be really, really honest. Was your game plan, was your strategy for the May exam, did it work? Did you put in enough hours? Okay, or did you just focus on the study manual? Yeah, so you've got many retakers. Retakers fall into different categories. There are those that don't do much work. Okay, for them, it's all about they need to have a change in approach, change in attitude, and that's something that's got to come from within. You've then got the next set of students who just focus on the study manual. Okay, and so when they've gone into the exam, they've struggled to connect with what's been asked, and that's a common issue. Okay, and that's easily fixable. You've then got the next type of student, which I dread, and I'm so sorry, is where you've got the student who's just done every single past paper question. Okay, now that does work for other qualifications. It doesn't work for CTA, and I've been saying this for 24 years. Okay, if you go into a CTA exam knowing your tax, knowing that you're competent, whatever's thrown at you, you can't fail. You just can't fail. It's as simple as that. Okay, and this whole heavy reliance on past papers where students will say, oh, it wasn't like that last year. Oh, excuse me, the examiner's not written it in this style before. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's still, the students need to, and we'll look at this later on the session, students need to look at the transaction. They need to learn tax problems, tax scenarios, and be able to link it to the rules in the study manual. Then all of you are going to pass. And I want to reiterate today, everyone on this call or anyone watching the recording, you can pass the CTA. Okay, they are not difficult exams. If your prep from day one, your approach is correct, then you'll be absolutely fine.
It's really interesting. I remember Jack did I think Jack put a blog on, and he was talking about people that didn't pass exams, and he's saying it's not exam style, it's technical knowledge.
Yeah.
Exams don't suit me. It's not about that. It's your technical knowledge on the CTA exams.
Alison, absolutely. And so, for example, for those of you that are doing individuals advanced technical or OMB advanced technical, an example, and I'll make this quick, that if you've got a shareholder disposing of shares, would that shareholder qualify for business asset disposal relief? And there are these 4 conditions. You need to own a minimum 5% in the company, trading company, you've got to work, and all of that has to happen for 2 years. Now, everyone knows that. So when I ask every student, yeah, Nick, those are the conditions. And I then go a little bit deep. I'll say, okay, that 5% is actually on, I won't go through all of it. There are 4 things you need to own 5% in. But if you only own 5% in 2 of the 4, can you still get BADAR? And every student I've spoken to in the last week and a bit has said, no, Nick, you can't. Alison, they were wrong, because there's an exception to the rule where you can. And that's the technical depth the students don't go to. Yeah, and so if you're doing, say, taxation of large corporates, okay, understanding about interest payments, okay, that a UK company pays out, it's going to depend on whether it's to a UK individual, or any individual, or is it to a country with a double tax treaty. And so students just learn the top line and they don't learn the mini sub scenarios which then come up. Okay, and the minute that a student can do that, you can beat the examiner. You're ready.
And tell me, Nit, is that because it's not something you do in the classroom at BPP or Kaplan or wherever it is that you may study? Is it because it's the technique that they need to go home and really get underneath the depths of the technical, or is that something that is learnt in the classroom?
Yeah, I think what it is, the way I teach taxation of large corporates is I don't use manuals. The manuals are great, don't get me wrong, the manuals are brilliant, but for me, I literally start with a transaction. So I literally show them what they're going to see in the exam from day one. Okay, from day one, that's it. Okay, I'm not about detail, I'm about enough technical depth and coverage that you can get 70% without breaking into a sweat. Okay, that is what I do. And I think the minute students start looking at things from a transaction lens, okay, not predicting what's coming up, but learning to like break out a question, read it line by line. Okay, there's interest here, and I think what it is with tax, you've got to have a checklist. You have to have a checklist. So if we're looking at, say, business asset disposal relief, are you a sole trader? Different rules. Are you a sole trader that sold the business? Or are you a sole trader who ceased trading and will now just do an asset breakup? So there are different rules per transaction. And I think some students struggle with that technical empathy. Okay. And so as soon as you start learning it through transaction, and have this lovely checklist, it doesn't matter what the question is. If you've learned the checklist and you can adapt it, you're going to win.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. And is it important for a retaker to reattend both the taught and revision course again, or should they just jump onto a revision course for the same paper? What would you advise?
See, for me, I think with CTA, I've seen the benefits of students coming back on a taught course. Okay, so I often will get a student saying to me, "Oh, Nick, I'm just going to jump on your revision course," and I will say, "You're wasting your money." Yeah, genuinely, for me personally, because I would rather have taught you all the good habits and everything I need you to do, so that when you do come to revision, I'm going to push you that much further. Okay, and I think with taught as well, it's not a waste of time. Okay, you've got to go back, badger your tutors, harass your tutors with your knowledge gaps. If something doesn't make sense, don't waste time doing it on your own. Just ask a tutor. Okay, because some things are not always relevant or they're too niche. Just let it go. Yeah, but get the support you need, make sure it's balanced. So having a taught phase, you want to really spend the taught phase addressing the knowledge gap. See, revision, you won't be able to, because you're just going to be doing the same old questions again and again and again. Whereas on the taught phase, you can actually build up an extra 20-30% technical knowledge base, which you didn't have originally. Yeah, and that's why I'm very keen that students do go back on a taught course if you can.
Okay. And so, because it's very unlikely that the same question is going to come up again, right?
See, this is the thing. See, I never say that. What I always tell CTA students is, look, you're going to get 6 questions. It's going to be on tax. It's going to be a transaction. Okay. What you're going to get is a transaction that will have twists and turns. Okay. And if you have the checklist ready, checklist is there. It will help you. You're not there to get 100%. Yeah, I'll always encourage my students, get the 60, 70. If there's certain things you can't do, you're not going to fail. But as long as you've got a good, robust checklist, we call it flashcards, you've got the memory joggers that Tolly's produce with Kaplan, and BPP have them as well. These are all fantastic resources. You don't have to go and create your own checklist. They're done already. Okay, and you can use the manuals to add on extra bits if you want to. So there's a lot of stuff already been done for students, but what it is, too many students, they either go one extreme in the manuals, one extreme on the questions, and actually don't come in the middle. Okay, and that's where we're trying to get students to that point.
Brilliant. Okay. from your experience, you've said that many people fail the CTA exams.
Yeah.
Purely due to lack of technical depth. Is that the only reason, or is there any other considerations you think that would come up when people have failed the CTA exam?
Oh, Alison, I wish Jack was here. He'll start laughing again.
We'll ask the question again when Jack comes.
Yeah. I think what you've got is, if you have ATT students, many ATT students struggle with the jump. Yeah, because ATT is open book, CTA isn't. Okay, so for anyone that was an ATT student, you can pass CTA, but it's getting used to the volume, learning. That's the first bit. I've seen it with other qualifications, those that are on the ACA, CTA joint pathway, ACCA students, okay, they struggle to pass CTA initially because the previous qualifications have been very much about let's blitz the question bank, okay. And I also want to reassure ACCA students that there's Autumn Murphy that you can find on LinkedIn. She is a quadruple prize winner at CTA, and she's ACCA. Yeah, so ACCA students are amazing, but you've got to get out of the bad habit of blitzing questions. And that's why, and I've seen there are quite a few ACCA students that I know have given up because they just struggle with the volume. They kind of underestimate the demands of CTA. You know, what you got to understand with CTA, it's not just about memorizing past paper questions. The examiner is testing you on competency. It's like a driving test.
Yeah.
Okay. CTA is like a driving test. Okay. It's all about you showing them that you're going to be a competent tax advisor, a tax professional. I don't think a lot of students take that seriously. Yeah. And also there's a time commitment. Okay. You have to do, and if you're going to ask me how many hours, you know, you've got, me personally, I was doing 10 hours a week, if not more. Yeah, I'm not the brightest person. Okay, it takes me a while to understand things. Okay, but I had some amazing tutors that taught me the transaction way that made my life easy, that when I got a question, I could relate to it. Yeah, because I was taught how to attack a question, and students don't invest time in that. You know, and one of the things I will say to all retakers, Ali, it's a brilliant question you've asked. If you trust me a little bit, hopefully, I would ask you, whatever paper you have failed, for the next 3 weeks, go back and read every single question again. Don't do it, just read it. For 5 minutes, plan it. Read it line by line, no skim reading. Plan it as if it's on the computer. Go and then look at the marking guide. Look at what you've missed. That's the best bit. Look at what you've missed. Go back and look at why did you miss it? Was it because you were careless? Or was it because it was a knowledge gap? And put it on your watch outs. See, the most important thing you need to take away from today is make as many mistakes as possible from now until the day before the exam. And so for the next 3 weeks, I promise every single student here, you are technically going to jump 20, 30%. Okay. All right. Don't bother reading the solutions unless you really need to address an issue. But it's about you working out where the block is. And that's the trick, Ali. That's genuinely the trick. Okay. We're doing a separate session for APS on the 8th of August where we'll talk about, I use these techniques from day one. Okay. And I think that's what students need to do. Okay. And they need to be very honest with themselves. Actually, I'm a bit nervous on this. Well, become aggressive. Yeah, become aggressive with it. So when it comes up, you can smash it. Okay, and that's what you want to do. And in my class, I'm very much a Rocky fan, Sylvester Stallone, and I talk about Eye of the Tiger, and Rocky 3 in case. If anyone needs if anyone feels demotivated, just watch Rocky 3. I tell all my students it's for homework.
Really?
Okay, for homework they have to watch Rocky 3. It's one for me. It's the best one. And yeah, honestly, and I've had students come back and say, Nick, I'm pumped, I'm ready. And that's it. It's what you've got to do.
Brilliant. And I think there, going when you're talking about going back and reading the questions and look at what you missed,
Yeah,
using that technique of your checklist
brilliant.
and saying, right, there's my question. Did I use my checklist in that? And
Perfect.
having looked through the technical knowledge,
Yeah.
and actually remembering, because I think in those scenarios, sometimes when you're in the exam, the checklist goes out the window and you panic.
Yeah. And you know, and I know I'm going to do a shout out. You've got Tolly's, you've got Sheridan Gray, you've got Juliet Smith, amazing tutors. Yeah, at Kaplan, you've got the legend that is John Cunningham, you know, and they all use similar approaches. You know, it's not just me, you know, all these tutorial bodies have got some amazing tutors who can help you, guide you with this approach.
Fair enough. Okay, good. I like that. Um, do you advise students to sit 2 exams at a time?
No, no, no. Um, people do pass. Look, I'll tell you what it comes down. There's two parts to this. Should students do 2 advanced technical papers? Okay. My personal opinion is it for me, if it was my son or daughter, the answer is no. Okay. I'm very much one paper at a time person. If you have got the study leave, if you have got the support and everything around you in your personal life is calm, okay, then it's possible. Yeah, back in the day before this kind of format, we had to do 4 exams in one go. Okay, and so it was a nightmare. We did it. It can be done. Okay, so I'm going to say you need to really think it through. Can you do it? My biggest issue is doing APS and advanced technical at the same time. And it's a 50-50. I appreciate many from Tolly's and Kaplan will say, no, Nick's wrong. You know, you should do both. I will tell all BPP students to just do one at a time. Okay, and I'll give you a reason for this. I have been speaking to a few people this week who failed APS TOLC, the taxation of large corporates. And when I asked them, what mark did you get in advanced technical? Oh, I got 50, 51, 53. I said, look, you're not technically ready to do APS. Yeah, there needs to be a APS. It's not technically demanding, but they cover a broader range. And so it catches students out. Okay, and that's the problem. And it all comes down to your skill set. If you got the time, if you write reports at work and you can naturally do an executive summary, you can do a report with recommendations and link it to calculations in an appendix, then you have my blessings to do both. But if you've never written a report in your life, I think you're adding too many layers and you really should be doing one paper at a time. But that's for the 8th of August when we'll talk about the 2 together. But Jen, personally, I think from when I did it, the tax content has grown so much that I think doing one at a time, slow and steady, will get you through.
Nick, why do you think people do take it 2 at a time? Do you think they're under pressure from the firm, the partners, the HR teams? From your experience, where's the pressure coming from to do 2 at once?
In all fairness, I think it's people's individual life plans. Yeah, I've actually known students hold off having a baby and getting married till they've done the exams. Yeah, and I think that pressure of, look, I need the qualification, I need this, I need that, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Okay, I think more employers are keen for people to do 2 papers, APS and an advanced technical, rather than 2 advanced technicals. You don't see it that often, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. The next question I've got is regarding legislation.
Yep.
So, does legislation play a key part in the exam?
It actually depends on the paper.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, I personally don't think you need legislation for application planning skills for OMB and taxation of large corporates. APS, I'm being honest, I don't think you do. I can't comment on the others because I don't teach them. For advanced technical, for owner managed businesses, which my colleague Libby Morris teaches, she's adamant minimal ledge, don't need it. Whereas for individuals, advanced technical and taxation of large corporates, there are certain bits where you would need the ledge, definitely. I've actually done a recording on how to use the legislation for taxation of large corporates, which you can then use for other papers to show you what to do. So yeah, I think the main problem here is some students waste time quoting section numbers in the exam. There are no marks for quoting section numbers. You're going to get 0 marks for just copying out the ledge, because that's not what the exam is about. The one bit where the legislation can be super useful is admin. Yeah, so certainly it's like if you're saying taxation of large corporates and there's a question on say senior accounting officer or tax strategies for large companies, all the contents in the ledge. Okay, so you can use that to then help you apply. So I think students need to be very selective at the talk phase, what they're going to use the ledge for and what they're not. And I would say an over reliance on legislation can be detrimental, and I've seen it with students.
That's really interesting. Probably not a lot of people would know that. And like you say, you're not going to get marks for quoting section numbers. So remove it from your brain. Don't waste the space.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
And that's there's a lot of relief around the table here, Nick. You're saying this to people.
No, absolutely. And legislation can be really useful, certainly for individuals, advanced technical, with the residency tests and all the different permutations. It can be really helpful. And there are some beautiful bits of ledge. But for example, in taxation of large corporates, when we look at controlled foreign companies, my students, they're not allowed to touch it. I don't even let them use it. Okay, but for demergers, absolutely. The legislation is an absolute gift.
Okay, great. Okay, top tips for a retaker.
Top tips off the top of my head. When we finish this session this evening, the first thing you need to do is do a proper timetable, a proper realistic timetable where you have a life. Okay, and you need to be honest. And I always ask people this, what is your evening like after work? Yeah, we spoke about before this session how we got to, yeah.
It's busy. Life is busy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Life is busy, and I think people need to be, people always say, don't they, that you'll have good intentions. Okay, good intentions. Oh, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start doing that, and it will fizzle out by next week. Yeah, whereas you want consistency. To be really honest with yourselves, how much can you do Monday to Thursday? Now you'll notice I said Monday to Thursday. Fridays, I have this rule: no one studies on a Friday. Yeah, I call it Fun Time Friday. Just chill, relax. So Monday to Thursday, if you've got kids, you've got other commitments, work is crazy, and you're feeling guilty, then I just say do half an hour. Yeah, do half an hour on topics that you find comfortable. Just look at some computations. Just recap your pro formas, something light if you're really feeling guilty. Okay. And what you've got to do is allocate maybe a weekend. Now, it comes, you either do a whole Saturday from morning to early afternoon, or you do half day Saturday, half day Sunday. Yeah. And you've also got to talk to your, people in your life. So, they buy into this. Because if I've spoken to so many students where it doesn't go down well with the other half or family members, it causes issues. And you see, you can't study when you're stressed. You can't study when you've got all that other mental baggage. Okay, and so you've got to create an environment for yourselves from now until November. Okay, where you're that's gone, so you can really attack this. Okay, I think that's really, really key. So I think timetable is number one. I think your game plan should be for the first 3 weeks as a retaker. Do exactly what I said. If you want to take 4 weeks, but you want to read every question again so that you can start connecting. You can start spotting transactions. You know what to do. Okay, and what you then want to do from now until September is learn the content. Okay, so you want to learn the key words that you need for those conditions that you can then apply. Okay, it's really, really important. I'm going to give a quick example if that's okay.
100%.
So if you say for individuals advanced technical or OMB advanced technical, you have an individual gifting a business asset to someone. The first thing you want to say, the gift is a chargeable disposal. So chargeable disposal. Then in the exam, you put that as a proper sentence. The gift is a chargeable disposal, subject to CGT. That gets you a mark. You then want to put sale proceeds market value. Why? Because they're connected. That gets you another mark. You then explain why are you getting gift relief? Yeah, you want to say gift relief applies, but why? Because it's a business asset. But go a little bit further. If it's shares in an unquoted trading company, it's any percentage. That's why. Yeah, or is it shares in a quoted trading company? Then it's a minimum 5%. So you're getting the marks, literally the conditions, so keywords. Okay, but then you want to talk about tax impact. This is the really cool bit. This is where you lot miss out. That's why you're here, right? It's tax impact. Yeah, see that's why you lot are stopping. Everything you learn now, go for tax impact. Why is it great? Because the person who's gifting, if there's no consideration, there's full gift relief. But don't stop there. Full gift relief means there's no CGT. The gain has dropped to nil. Spell it out. It's that obvious. You're going to get easy marks. But what's the impact on the donee? Unhappy face. They're going to get a lower base cost. Yeah, they're going to get a lower base cost. Okay, which means a higher gain in the future. Okay, so again, you're getting all these marks. And then for individuals advanced technical, they'll go into a little bit more detail about the clawback. Okay, that we know where if the donee ceases to be UK resident within 6 years, and there are various things there, you've got another model answer there to throw in. Then you've got the admin, joint election. So literally on that one transaction, Alison, there were like 8 points, checklist. And that's what you want to be doing, because when you go in that exam and you spot gift relief again, whether it's full or partial, you're ready. You don't need to worry about past papers. It's about you spotting the transaction. And that's what you want to get ready until the end of September. Okay. And those are my top tips.
It sounds hugely to me like what the CTA exams do is prepare you for the real world.
Absolutely.
So what they're looking for is if the examiner is your client, spell it out.
Can I just stop you there? It's brilliant. And what the reason why these guys are failing is they're double writing.
Okay.
Let me explain this. So what students are doing is some students will literally have memorized the study manual. And they'll write, oh, gift relief arises on business assets, etc., etc. They write this whole theory. Stop it. You'll get 0 marks for that. Just get to the point. Alison qualifies for gift relief because give an applied answer. You've just doubled your time available in the exam. It's short and sweet. For advanced technical, they want short sentences, literally 1 sentence applied per point. And the most important bit in tax is dates. Do you know the one thing that annoys me, Alison? I go mental. My students on APS, they get a really big telling off. So Alison, if you said to me, Nick, when is your birthday? And I said to you sometime in March, that's not going to help you. That's a bit like a student saying to me, oh, yeah, the tax return's due on the 31st of Jan following the tax year. Is that what we're going to tell a client? What tax year, what year? But that's what these guys are writing. Then they're not giving an applied answer. Okay, and that's where they're dropping the easy marks. And it's all about dates and application. Okay, you can't fail. Just can't fail.
Spelling it out.
Spelling it out.
Spelling it out. As if the examiner doesn't know a thing about tax.
Yeah, that transaction, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think maybe some people are, and again, I don't know anything about tax, but just from listening to you, it's as if we're assuming that the examiner knows everything about tax because they do, but that's not what they want to see. They want to know that you're ready for action. So if you work at Safri, if you work at Hayes McIntyre, they can put you in front of a client and say,
Yep.
you're CTA qualified, therefore you can explain things properly to this client. Because that's what my clients want from a CTA qualified professional. They want someone who they can responsibly put in front of a client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've actually had students come back to me and thank me for the way we've done advanced technical or APS, because they've been able to pass the interviews. Because the interviews, at the higher levels, it's transaction. What would you do in this transaction? What would you do in this scenario? Yeah, and we're getting you ready for this now. Yeah, absolutely. It's not theory. It's not just about study manuals. It's not just about blitzing questions. It's be the tax advisor that you're destined to become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that, Nick. Thank you. Love that. We've got some questions here, Nick.
Yeah,
We'll just throw them out to you. What is meant by blitzing questions for ACCA students?
So what a lot of ACCA students, when I ask them, how did you pass your ACCA qualification?
Yeah.
They will literally tell me, oh, I just worked through the question bank. Yeah, I just worked through the question bank and I hoped that the same stuff came up, and it did. Okay. And that is something you can't do with CTA. Yeah, with CTA, as you've rightly pointed out, it's about look at the transaction, get the right checklist in, see what's relevant, see what's not relevant, and apply. Yeah,
Okay.
don't knowledge dump, don't spam it with too much irrelevant content, keep it sensible and simple.
Another question I've got is it's more a statement/question. I'd get scenarios only from past questions and revision question bank. What else should I do?
To be fair, what I would do is so questions will only cover X amount of the syllabus. What I would do is cross-check it with the memory joggers, make sure everything's been covered, and just have a quick read of the study manual. Yeah, just scan read it. Don't read it in depth. Yeah, and just think, okay, and when you're reading the study manual, look at some points from a transaction point of view. Does that make sense? Okay, so because the study manual will say, well, if this happens, then you do this. It's a bit like that Badar rule, where if 5% isn't met of the four things, then this is another permutation. So you've got to look for the other permutations and just have that factored. So if that comes up in the exam, you're good to go.
Brilliant. Hopefully that's answered your question. How do we get to access the APS session in August? Well, I'll come on to that actually. The next podcast, just to because we've mentioned it a couple of times, because I think it's going to be such a popular one because of that paper. The APS session is on the 8th of August. Nick, if you can tell us what we'll be covering, and then I can tell everybody how to access it, that'd be great.
Sure. So that APS session, we did one a few years ago with past students. So rather than you just listening to me, we're going to have some past students, some who passed the APS paper first time, and some are going to be retakers. And so your questions can be directed at me, it can be directed at them on what they did to pass that paper, because it seems quite elusive, this particular exam, and many students do struggle with it. So at the moment, there's 4 of us, including Alison. We'll probably make it 6 if I can get a few more volunteers. I've just got to ask them really nicely. And yeah, it's going to be an amazing session on literally us showing you what to do. We're going to be using OMB APS students, okay? But the points that you're going to get from that will apply to every APS exam. So it is for all APS students.
Excellent. Okay. And the people that we've got guest speaking, one of them has had a retake and one of them is a prize winner. So you're seeing it from both sides, and someone talking about where they fell down, and then someone talking about why she felt that her answers, what she's done. So we can really learn from that, which I think is excellent. Okay. So someone's put here study manual. Is that provided by the CIOT?
No, so basically for CTA, you should have a set of manuals, course materials. Okay, so when you've booked on for a talk course or you've done distance learning, Okay, and so Tollies produce these manuals, which are then supplied to BPP and Kaplan and First Intuition students as well. They're brilliant. They are really, really good. But you've got to learn not to freak out by the volume. Yeah, and that's why we're using the checklist approach to kind of manage that.
Okay, so study manuals, they're available at your tuition provider.
Absolutely, yeah. For BPP, it'll be if you've booked onto a talk course, you're paying for the manuals. It's included in the price.
Fine, okay. And sorry, the answer to the APS session in August, what we're going to be doing, there'll be a lot of media on the APS course, so people can click on that and register. But what we will do for everybody that's here today and everybody that's come, we'll actually send you the APS link so that you can register for that webinar again, to make that easier, so you're not having to look out for it on LinkedIn. You'll actually get the you'll get the link. Another question here. Should I move on from an exam question after X amount of time, even if I haven't answered it fully? How much time should I allocate per question?
So basically, I think what you've got to do is literally work out then. So ultimately, for all the advanced technical papers, basically, if you've got extra time, to work out the total amount of time you have, divide it by the 100 marks, and literally allocate accordingly. Okay, and I'm going to throw this out there. So there are many people that disagree with me, but I know I'm right. Okay, on this one, and I tell all my students that when they go into the exam, have a quick scan of the questions, okay? And there'll be one question, fingers crossed, that will make them smile. That will say, you know, I can do that. All my students are told that's the one you do last. That's the one you do last, because when you're 2.5 hours in and your energy levels are pretty much plummeting, you know you've bagged 10, 15 marks already. It could be an adjustments question. It could be a computational question. Do it last. Okay, because that way you're skiing downhill. Okay, your brain, you can go on reserve energy and you know you clock in those marks. Okay, there'll be some students that say to me, they'll counter it, Alison, that, but I need to boost my confidence. Look, I'm old school. Once you go into that exam, it's like Rocky 3 again. You're stepping into the ring. Okay, you're stepping into the ring. You've got to go for the full, 12 rounds. You're going in for the fight. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to save your best punch until the end. Okay, all right, but the first few questions, I tell all my students, try and go for the written ones. You see, the biggest problem is not many students like writing. Okay, but advanced technical, they're written exams. As soon as you get used to giving advice, it becomes really straightforward. Yeah, and you'll find the examiner is actually quite limited in what they can ask you. Once you do the checklist approach, pick out what's relevant. Yeah, and you'll find in most of the questions, not all of it, but a lot of your advice will be the same. Okay, purchase of own shares. How many different ways can that go? EMI share options, restricted securities. Yeah, there are certain ways these things go. You know how that works. You've seen it. Okay, you've done this in your own papers. Okay, but it's then now taking it to the next level and look at those alternative permutations. You're technically ready.
Excellent. Okay. You mentioned flashcards and checklists. Is this something we can create for us? We should create for ourselves, or is this something that's available for students?
To be fair, so I think so basically for taxation and large corporates, advanced technical, my students get my flashcards. Okay. On par, you've got the Tollies memory joggers. Okay, so there are Kaplan memory joggers. They are just as good. Does that make sense? It all depends what works for you. Okay. Some students create their own, where they say, you know what, I'm going to have my own checklist, and and that's part of your work in progress from now until the end of September. Okay, so even my own students, Alison, will say, actually, can I just create my own? So it actually comes down to the individual student, what they want to do. Okay, but I'm going to repeat it here. You do not have to create your own if you don't want to. You've got the amazing memory joggers. Okay, I know Libby with OMB Advanced Technical at BPP. She does her own thing. Vicky does her own thing on Individuals Advanced Technical. So each tutor will have their own way of helping the student. Okay, I know Nicole Neville at Tolly's has her own handouts and things that she does. So yeah, let your go back to your tutor, let them help you and let them guide you is the best thing.
I remember, Nick, when we first started speaking and we talked about being organised and having certain quirks and things that help you pass exams, like memory joggers. One of the things you use is colours, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Can you talk
yeah,
to our audience about the use of colours when revising?
yeah. So when I was a student, when I was doing my CTA, I was taught the checklist approach. Okay, so for example, apologies if this doesn't apply to you, but it's trying to help you. So if you're looking at, say, purchase of own shares, where an individual shareholder owns shares in a company, the way my tutor taught me was, look, there are 7, 8 conditions. So number one, unquoted trading company. Number two, benefit the company's trade. Number three, examples. Number four, individual, non-UK res. Sorry, UK res. 5-year rule or 3-year ownership rule. Then there were percent. So there were 8, 9 points. Now I genuinely struggle if that was in black text. That just doesn't work for me. My brain just can't respond. So what I used to do is I used to then do different colors of blue, different colors of green using Word or Excel. Game changer. It was an absolute game changer. And what I actually didn't realize, and I found out later, for those suffering of dyslexia, having the different colors also is a fantastic way of helping them revise, and it just makes it nicer. So yeah, I'm a big fan of colors, and anyone that's seen my sample material for TOLCG will know there's lots of colors. There's lots of colors everywhere, and also with calculations. So with the long computations, I used to highlight the different colors, so I knew where of numbers, so I knew where the numbers were moving, and that also helped me out a great deal.
Wonderful. How can a checklist be structured in the most effective way from your perspective?
Okay, so if you're using the memory joggers, yeah, the memory joggers are beautifully laid out with point, point, point. You want to convert that sentence into one keyword. Does that make so? If you're start with purchase of own shares, if you're doing individuals or OMB advanced technical, it will be the conditions in there. Everything's ready. Yeah, and that's the best way to do the checklist.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and you can add to it. Sorry, Sally. And so with
Yeah.
that checklist, what you can then do, if you're then doing a question and something weird comes up, where there's a permutation, put the watch out on the checklist. Yeah, and that's your revision from now until the end of September. Just revise that checklist. Sorry.
No, it's great. Quick one for you. Will you be teaching the OMB courses for November 2024?
Right. So you've got my colleague Libby Morris. I taught Libby. She's an absolute legend at OMB AT. You don't need me. She is I hate to say this, she's a million times better than me. Okay, her notes. We have a competition, Alison. We have a competition, me and Libby, because we teach other papers, and who can produce the best handout. Hers are a million times better than mine, and I genuinely mean it. I'm the old guard. This is the new generation of tutors coming in. She's so good. She's so passionate. But you will get me for OMB, APS, and taxation of large corporates, advanced technical. But
Right.
yeah.
Okay. When reviewing the May 24 paper again over the next 3 weeks, do we work the questions back again using the answers first and see how to identify the tax issues line by line? Or do you suggest to try and do each question from scratch first?
Right. I don't want anyone doing. Okay. I personally do not want anyone doing any questions to time until October. Okay, because October is all about rehearsing, practicing, getting ready. What I want you to do, and I'll repeat it again, I want you to just read the question line by line, see how you go. Just learn, don't wimp out, don't give up. Just read, even if it's not making sense. Put, just plan on a piece of paper, question mark, question mark. Go to the marking guide, get your knowledge up to a level, get that fixed first.
Right.
Yeah, that's key.
You mentioned checklists, but how do you determine on how much detail should be included? I.e., where do you stop on the basics?
Keyword. Yeah, a checklist. A checklist is literally, think of it like a shopping list.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was just thinking then. Shopping list,
yeah. So look, all of you, I presume, drink milk. Okay, so my wife will have almond milk. I have green milk. Okay, so when I'm going shopping for me, it'll just be milk. I know it's green milk. Yeah. Number two, bread. I know which bread I'm going to get. And that's the point. It's just got to be keywords.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you need to add a little bit of detail because you're going to forget, put in a little bit of detail in a square bracket. Yeah, but it's the keyword. The keyword approach is going to save you. It's going to help you manage the volume.
I love that analysis. Like I say, like dinner for Tuesday, you don't need to list every item. You know what you want. It's there. Love it. Really love that. Okay. Should I only study topics that haven't come up in recent past papers?
Kill me now. Yeah. Look.
Technical depth, broaden that knowledge.
Yeah,
right?
You can't do that. I've got very little time for stuff like this. I'm being honest. Students like that worry me. Yeah. And I get students who do this analysis of what's been tested, can't do that. Just can't do that. This is the CIOT do not want students like this. If they were here right now, Alison, you know them, I know them, they're going to be cringing, thinking, I hope you're not qualified. Yeah. Learn the syllabus, know your tax, be confident. Yeah.
Well, it's just you when you're learning to drive, you don't learn how to drive on the road that you're just driving to work every day, do you? You learn how to drive the entire network of roads and dual carriageways and motorways and everything, not just the route you're going to take every day. You've got to have a wide knowledge.
Yeah. It's a dangerous game, like for taxation of large corporates. Demergers. I teach demergers every sitting. It hasn't come up in years. And I will get the students saying, Nick, do you think it's coming up? And I'll say, I have no clue, but I've got you ready. Yeah.
Given the likely changes that are going to be announced in the next budget, will we be examined on them? If not, if we answer using the new tax rules, would we still get marks?
No. There's a cutoff for when budget changes go through, and your tutors will make it clear it won't affect you for the November 24 exam, not at all. Yeah, so don't even bring it in. Don't mention it.
Great. Do you offer any private tutoring?
Right. I need to make this clear because I had another call with my bosses today about this. I am a full-time employee at BPP. I cannot, will not, and do not offer private tuition. And I think, and I'm gonna so Pardsma 2 said to me, Nick, your name's on Reddit where you have this charge out rate, this extortionate charge out rate. And I may have said it to a student one day that, to kind of deter that we don't do it. It was tongue in cheek, and somehow it's in red. So people think there's this rate that I charge. I can't, I will be sacked. I'll be using Alison's services. Okay. Okay. So and my bosses know this. Alison, do you know, every month I probably send out 6 or 7 messages on LinkedIn where I literally look, where they're asking for private tuition. I do not. There are other good tutors that do. Okay. Depending on your paper, I can say you can go to this person or that person, but I personally won't do private tuition. No. Thank you.
One thing I would say is that you can contact for free CTA@bpp.com.
Yep.
CTA@bpp.com. If you contact them for free, they will help you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Another question just in, we're 3 months out now, and then obviously there's going to be 2 months out and 1 month out. What should I be doing at each stage? Now, obviously we've looked at the timetable, haven't we? we've looked at the timetable, and if you put your timetable together of revision, any other things, 3 months, 2 months, and 1 month, the biggest things you should be doing at each stage?
Yeah, so I think you've got to work in stages. You've got to work in stages. And I think that your cutoff should be the end of September. By the end of September, you have got the knowledge. You've addressed your knowledge gaps. Okay, you're a lot more comfortable spotting reading issues in a question, because that's what we're asking you to do. You've got to do regular revision. You've got to be revising the checklist, the computational pro formas. Okay, what you then want to be doing, I think we're going to be running a separate seminar, I think some point in September, about how to get ready for revision. We don't have a date for that. Alison's waiting on me.
Yes. It's a
So yeah,
tentative, isn't it? It's a tentative.
it is a tentative, because
We've got 87 people who've now got pressure on you, Knit.
I know. The reason being I'm dithering is because during September, the CIOT are going to be releasing dates soon for their kind of exam skill focus session days, which are £17 for certain ATT and CTA papers. Okay, so those are going to be happening. So I've got to pick once those dates are finalized with the CIOT, we are going to hold a revision session on what to do for October. And I think your priority right now is get your coverage, get your technical depth in, regular revision on checklists, pro formas. That is all I ask you need to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question just in. What does it mean to be a BPP student? If our apprenticeship is run by BPP, but the tuition is TOLI, that is different, right?
Yeah, that gets a little bit messy, unfortunately. You will be a TOLI's student, not a BPP student. And like I said, TOLIs are brilliant. Okay, I've got a lot of respect for them. They do a lot for their students. And use those tutors. They're brilliant. They're fantastic. Yeah.
Does BPP also provide ATT classes?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. What's the best way to adapt from the ATT being open book to the CTA being closed book?
It's a brilliant question. It's a fantastic question. I think the way to adapt is you've got to. So I know with ATT, you didn't have to learn the content. Doesn't make the exam easy. It's still ATT are still challenging exams. And you've got to be very organized to pass ATT. I think when you get to CTA, it's more about not just learning the rules. Learn the rule very quickly, but like I said, try and then link it to the transaction. Yeah, and build up those little checklists, those key points. Okay, and revising, and your tutors will help you. Okay, I get that. I get ATT students in my class, and I'll say, who's ATT? And so we spend a little bit more time with them. Okay, making sure they're not overwhelmed and they're okay. Okay, and so you know, make sure you ask for the support. Kaplan, TOLI's, BPP, First Intuition will help you, will guide you, and will support you. So you're going to, and I know Libby and Vicky at BPP are amazing in helping the ATT students kind of transition across.
I was going to say, it's quite a big transition, isn't it?
It is. And I think because CTA comes with this really bad reputation, it's really hard, it's really difficult. Okay. You know, I get there are a lot of negatives, and we do reassure.
I think it's, if you've got to this stage and you're going from ATT and you're about to embark on your CTA, in your life so far, you've had many transitions from GCSEs to A levels
Agreed.
to degree to them working and studying at the same time. So
Yeah,
you know, you've done pretty bloody well to get to this stage, really.
agreed. And do you know what, Alison,
have some faith in yourself as well. You know, have some confidence.
Alison, you've touched on something really important, and I think, and I do say this, guys, you don't realize how clever you are, and you're probably sitting there, but I failed. It doesn't matter. You know, tax is complex. Yeah, every time when I've gone out for a meal or I've met someone and they suddenly know I'm in tax, you know, the first thing most people, tax is really complicated. You know, the fact that you're here fighting away, trying to get this qualification, you know, we're in a very elite group. We're in a very, very elite group. Okay. And it's a bit like SAS training. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of pain, a lot of graft, but you're going to get there. You're going to get over the line. Okay. And you just got to change your approach, change your attitude, manage your timing, and be positive. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? You know, you got to trust me here. I want you to get so many things wrong until the day before the exam. Yeah. Okay. That's the most important thing I want to tell you right now. Okay. And me personally, I never ever write a student off. Okay, the number of times, I mean, I will warn students in my classes, you will fail if you do this, you'll fail if you do that. And, and that's not to put them down or intimidate them, that's to warn them. And these students come out and smash it, they pass, and you've just got to have that gut, those guts, that fight. Yeah, and you're going to be absolutely fine. And each day you want to try and make at least one mistake, because that means each day you're growing. Yeah.
It's a really nice opportunity to put in this question, actually. So someone said here, if the worst happens and by October I'm not passing my mock exams,
Yeah.
would you advise deferring the exam?
No.
Because you're learning, right? If you're making mistakes.
I'm so proud of this. My mum's not here, so I can say this again. I've never passed the mock in my life. I have never, my own children, they're 18 and 22. Their mum gets annoyed with me. Their mum will say to my kid, make sure you do well. And my son will look at me. He won't. Okay, I go, look, just do your best. Yeah, but Dad, what if I get 22%? Well, another 28 and you've passed. It's, the mocks don't define you. Yeah, the mocks do not define you. 24 years I've been doing this. Okay, just what it is, just don't mess it up on the day. The mocks are a really good dress rehearsal. I used to go in, and I'm gonna get told off for this. I used to go in to every mock without revising. Yeah, and what my attitude was, how much do I actually know without doing any work? And I'd get 24%. I'd be over the moon. My mum would be killing me. Yeah, it's Indian family thing. Okay. But my mum would go, but you got 24. But I glass half full, glass half empty, and it was a good starting point.
Yeah.
Okay. I would rather you fail a mock and pass the real exam. What worries me is I get retakers saying to me, I did really well in a mock, but I failed the real exam. And that breaks my heart. Yeah, that's where I think I feel like, okay, something's clearly gone wrong in the process. Okay, so no, don't let the mocks define you.
Wonderful. Really good advice there. Another question on APS. What would you recommend that people do right now for APS? Should they be revising?
Okay, so for APS, you should be you need to know your core content. Okay, so for OMB APS, I produce a 200-page document of my own that my students need to revise. Okay, and it's all transaction led. Okay, so that's what I've done for them. Okay, if you're a retaker, you will have those previous transactions already that you're familiar with. So if you're doing IHT APS, you've got various trusts, death estate issues, lifetime gift issues, tax planning. Okay, for taxation of large corporates APS, you've got intercompany lending, has a knock-on effect on interest restrictions. You've got structuring, acquiring a factory overseas or one in the UK. So, you've got to kind of be comfortable with the advice you're going to give. Okay, so for APS right now, there's two things you need to do is yes, learn the content, but also think more about the applied answer you're going to give a client. So for OMB APS, Alison, I make up pretend clients. Okay, so I have Libby Limited. Okay, I then have Salim and Fatima, the sole trader and daughter. So then and I have students saying, Nick, it was similar to Libby Limited. This came up, so students can see the transaction, the repeat transaction coming through. And that's a really good thing to do. And I have Bob the Baker.
Bob the Baker.
Bob the Baker. Yeah. Yeah. All my examples around food. It's all about food. So yeah.
I love it. Brilliant. We seem to have managed to, oh, here we go. We've got another question come through. Right. Why do BPP have a staggered approach with regards to teaching, one session a week compared to Tolley's and Kaplan?
Look, ultimately, BP, I basically was instrumental in this many years ago. It was more because of me, if I'm being honest. I struggled with coming into class every day. That wasn't for me. I know some people can do it. It's great. I prefer 1 day a week, learn one bit, build it. Okay, it works for if it doesn't work for you, go for Tollies, go for Kaplan by all means. But for a lot of students, especially the mature students, they love it. Yeah, and those that can't take in lots of volume of information all in one go. Okay, look, CTA is hard. Okay, there's no right or wrong way of doing it, and we just wanted to do something different. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nit. Is there anything else that we've not asked, that you've not been asked, that you thought would come up and that you think we need to know for our retakes?
Okay, closing point. Okay, closing point is you need to move on. I think the most important thing about you passing this exam in November, I think a lot of it is what's in your head. Yeah, I know you're going to be feeling a little bit deflated. You're going to be questioning your own ability. Okay, I've been doing this 24 years. All right. And I would say in those 24 years, maybe 5 or 10 people have given up CTA. Okay. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Okay. I think what you've got to do is don't go into November focusing on passing. If I'm being honest, I would go into November giving it your best shot. Yeah. Giving it your best shot in learning your tax, applying it. You're going to be pleasantly surprised how you perform. Just take the pressure off. What happens happens. Yeah, I've had a student who failed TOLCG 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. She'd come back, she'd be in tears, and we'd sit down, we'd go back to the drawing board, and she got through. Once she got through, she passed everything else. You've just got, this to be a tax advisor, it's a slog. Yeah, it's a skill set, it's a slog, and you've got to be kind to yourself. Okay. And as long as you're consistent now in small steps, okay, follow through on what we've asked you to do, you will get through. Okay. But your timetable's got to be sensible. You've got to have a life, you've got to have treats. Okay. And regular revision, you're going to be fine. And that's the main thing. And if you've got any questions at any point, you've got any issues or concerns, okay, you can reach out to me via LinkedIn or at cta@bpp.com. I have no problems, giving kind of generic, non-technical advice. And you just believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you've got in the 40s, you will pass. I see it all the time, students going from 40 to 70%. Okay. And when they pass, they'll say, Nit, I realized, gosh, how much I didn't actually know. Okay. And you're nearly there. Okay. And so just keep going.
We've had a couple more questions actually, and I think
Sure.
we've got time if you're happy to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, sure.
Amazing, brilliant. Okay, so what is your advice for individuals who passed the mark last time around but failed the exam?
I would actually say for you, get a breakdown of the marks. Yeah, I'm not usually a fan of getting the breakdown of the marks, but because that will have an effect on your confidence. And also go back and look at the mock. Okay, go back and look at the mock. It could be that the questions were completely different. Does that make sense? What came up in the mock, you had already seen, you're a lot more comfortable. And sometimes in the real exam, you were thrown off guard. Okay, so that can be an issue. Does that make sense? I think that's the first thing. And I think getting the marks breakdown and then go back to that past paper. They're on the CIOT website. Go back and have another shot spotting the issues. Yeah. And that's happened to a few of my own students as well. Okay, so it's one of those horrible ones, and I do feel for the student that's in that position.
Yes, it must be really tough actually. Yeah, really tough. Do you think in-person revision sessions scheduled a week before the exam leave enough time, or would you recommend attending online revision scheduled in October?
Do you know what? I've taught a Big Four firm in my time at BPP where the in-person revision was a week before the exam. And for 4 years running, we got 100% pass rate in a particular paper. Yeah, so it does work. It can work. It's whether it's right for you. Yeah,
Okay.
if you can handle the stress and but you've got to be organized. Yeah, so if you feel like, no, that's too close to call, then go for the slightly earlier one. But it comes down to the individual. If it was me, if you're asking me personally, I would do it slightly sooner. Okay, I wouldn't wait till a week before. But there are some students who love it. They say, no, I'm going to be ready here. I'm going to be at my peak. So it comes down to what works for you.
Good advice. If a person has a technical knowledge gap and is looking at May 24 paper only for the next 3 weeks, is that the
No,
best approach?
no, not just May 24. You get all the past papers that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's every past paper you can, if you've got all of you should have the revision question banks already from your previous sitting. Okay, so it's every past paper question, not just May 24. Sorry, I'll make that clear. Thank you.
Great. Examiner question. If you mention something not on the examiner's answer box, will you not get the marks? I.e. mentioning admin like the submission deadline for personal tax return.
It depends on the context. It depends on the question. Okay, the CTA questions tend to be quite specific on what they want. Okay, so if it's something that's relevant to the answer, you'll get credit. Otherwise, no. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, on a business asset on any relief type question, on any of the advanced technical papers, there will be a claim for making the relief application. You'd get credit. Definitely.
Excellent. Great. There are so many takeaways there, Nit. I think that's been brilliant. I think just to give a brief, some of the key nuggets that I've taken away from this, taking accountability and not blaming certain things, and taking accountability that admitting to yourself that knowledge gap is there.
Yeah.
Perhaps
Yeah.
using a checklist. I've never heard of that before. I think that's a brilliant one. Colours, getting organised, using those joggers and those checklists, and using that shopping list approach of keywords. Love that. I think hopefully everyone will go away and watch Rocky 3. Remind me, is that the one with the Russian? Is that Apollo Creed? Which one is that, Nit?
That's the one with if you remember the old A-Team.
Yes.
BA.
Ah, the one that doesn't want to get on a plane.
Yep, that's the one.
Right.
The one.
Okay. Perfect. And I think thinking about the examiner, looking to see whether or not you can advise a client in your current role.
Yeah.
Thinking, what would I be telling a client in this? Paint the pain, be specific, use one sentences, be specific in your dates.
Agreed. Really
Absolutely. Important. And then even more important, practically get yourself a timetable, have a life. Don't study on Friday nights. No. I likened it a little bit to losing weight. Fad diets and going to the gym 7 days a week don't work, but actually going to the gym 4 days of work and eating a balanced, healthy diet is more sustainable.
Agreed. In
the long term. And I think it's about sustainability. You've got 3 months to revise. It's got to be sustainable, otherwise you'll burn out by the time your exam's here. And I think
what I want people to do from this is each day you want to learn something new. You want to make a mistake so you grow. And that's your challenge if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
And tell your family. If they don't know by now, let them know you really need that time.
Yeah, agreed.
Let them know you need the time, and get that the advanced technical depth, I think, is so important, because if you know your tax, then you're going to be all right, and you just need to be able to explain it to a client, so like you would in your exam.
100%.
We've got another question here, so I think we've got time for that. On the study manual, do you recommend going through in detail during the September phase when doing a resit?
Like I said, I think you should at least glance through the study manual, okay, just to get the other permutations. Yeah, but remember, there's a lot in the manuals that's quite niche and obscure. Okay, so get your tutor to guide you as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question. Do you recommend, after looking at a past paper and a question on something such as CPOS comes up,
Yeah,
should one build a flashcard at the same time in the next 3 weeks?
absolutely. Flashcard, checklist, same thing. Absolutely. So you're then ready for the whatever question comes your way. And if you see different permutations, put it on there. Absolutely. Perfect. Yep.
Brilliant.
If you're not using the memory jogger, only if you've decided that you don't want to use the memory joggers, which are brilliant already.
Yes.
So yeah. So you don't, I repeat, you don't have to create that. The memory joggers do help so many students out. So I don't want to send the message that memory joggers aren't good enough. They are good enough.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And if that's working for you, and it doesn't mean it's not working for you just because you failed an exam, because
Exactly.
you've not failed the exam because of exam technique or style. It's probably because of a gap in technical knowledge or the way that you've actually written the exam to the examiner. You've not given the overall tax impact, what we were talking about.
Yeah, so what one of my students did on taxation of large corporates said, Nick, if you don't mind, this was a retaker. I've got the memory joggers. I won't use your flashcards. I said, that's fine. Doesn't bother me. And what this student then kind of showed me on a webcam during a session, that this is what I've done. And what they'd done, they'd annotated on the memory joggers some of the extra bits from the manual, which is perfect, which is and she had actually highlighted key words in the memory jogger to kind of help her revise. It was brilliant. So and this is where you've got to find, so for over the next few weeks you will find your style that works for you. So you might want to try out different things to get to the point that's going to work best for you.
And that's it. It has to work for you.
Totally.
Don't switch it up just because someone said this works for me.
Agreed.
So make sure it works for you. Okay, so key nuggets and takeaways there. I think we're going to do a little summary as well, and I'll get this out on LinkedIn. Contact for free, cta@bpp.com, should you wish. The next podcast, 8th of August, on the APS paper, we've got Autumn Murphy and Harris Rahman, and we will send you guys the link to that so that you can register for the 8th of August. In the meantime, I'll be off to France, so I'll see you all then. I'd like to thank everybody for their time tonight. Thank you for coming on board. Nitin, especially you giving up your time when you should be with your family. It shows you how committed and passionate you are to this cause.
Just want to help people get through. You guys can do this. So I want to wish you the best of luck for until the end of September, and stick to the plan. Go for it.
Yeah. Well done, Nitin. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining. We hope we found that very useful. Have a good evening.